Welcome along to Betting Weekly Extra Time European Edition. You're with Dan Roebuck alongside me, as you can see, Steve Wyss and James Eastham. As per usual, very good day to you fellas. We come into the show off the back of Champions League action. Some really good games, of course. It just got me thinking about Paris Saint-Germain and Arsenal in particular, I guess, Steve, because, you know, PSG, as we know, it's just 18-team league now, not 20. The players don't have as many minutes into their legs. Arsenal didn't really have anything on the bench, and a number of the players have played an awful lot this season. There's been injuries as well, but I just wonder, is there a bigger swing to the sort of continental sides, to PSG in particular, and to Barcelona and co, having a bit more of an advantage because they've got fewer minutes in their legs at this stage of the season?
Well, good day to you both. And you are right, at this stage of the season, I think it's well worth looking at the amount of minutes that are in certain players' legs. You know, some teams are literally on fumes, aren't they? It feels like they're on fumes. You watch some teams, they've got not much left in the tank, and they can't give it their all in every single match. So you've got to prioritise fixtures. You know, in terms of the actual French top flight, switching to, you know, a 34-game season, what was it, 3 years ago now? Something like that. You know, if PSG go on to win this Champions League, then, you know, it might be a factor, perhaps. I mean, I think I've said for years, I actually think 18-team top flights are better. I mean, look at the Premier League recently. The same teams that go up keep going down, that sort of thing. I don't know. I do think that the Bundesliga and Liga have it better that way. You can have a winter break and all sorts of things, less midweek rounds, less hectic stuff. All you ever get with the Premier League sides and the managers is they moan about the amount of games they've got. And they do have a lot of games. Professional football is a lot different to what it was 15, 20 years ago.
James, your thoughts on this, to the likes of Paris Saint-Germain? And even I looked at Barcelona. Maybe it's just the way that they've managed their squad, because it's a 20-team league, of course, in Spain, but only 8 players over 2,000 minutes, none over 3,000. Liverpool had 10 players over 2,000 minutes, a couple over 3,000 minutes. It all dilutes down. It all transfers to how bettors assess fixtures at this stage of the season, doesn't it?
Yeah, it does. I think these things are factors. I think League One partly reduced down from 20 teams to 18 teams to give their teams a chance of doing better in Europe. So PSG, as Steve says, potentially living proof of that. And I think, you know, the way data is with football these days, you can actually drill down and look at the individual players' minutes. And I think that is really useful ahead of the second legs in the Champions League next week, because we will pretty much know what the starting 11s are going to be when we get the team news on, say, Monday, Tuesday next week. You can, if you want, then look at how many minutes cumulatively have the 10 outfield players, let's say, rather than worrying too much about the goalkeeper, in each of those 4 teams played. And I do think it's a factor. Yeah, we've talked about it in various leagues on this weekly show, playing in Europe or not playing in Europe, picking up minutes here, there and everywhere. It can make a difference during the season running. So does freshness and general fitness across a team give them an edge? I think it does.
Certainly the boys have been fresh over the course of the season, as you can see from the profit and loss for the European show. Outstanding figures. Steve is still inching towards profitability, but giving it a real good rattle at the moment. Still confident that Steve can get into the plus figures by the end of the season, but I'm sure the show will be because of James' outstanding performance over the 24-25 campaign. Get your comments in on YouTube. Of course, we are on hand over the course of the weekend. If you're fading us, if you're tailing us, who are you betting this weekend across the European slate? And we've got more content coming your way as well. You may well have known or seen that the tennis show live Monday through until Wednesday, 1 p.m. Eastern, but we've got more coming as well. We'll have a baseball show and a basketball show live for you midweek over the course of the late spring into the summer. It will be on the channel soon. We are, of course, talking European action with the 4 major leagues outside of the Premier League to consider. And we're going to kick off our plays and our thoughts on a fixture in Serie A, which is an interesting one. It's Steve's 2-unit play. I'm not quite sure how many 2U plays you've had in Italy this season, Steve. You might know off the top of your head, you might not. But we're going to go to Parma, Como, a 9 a.m. kickoff on Saturday Eastern time. I mean, Como have been flying at the moment. Only one team in Serie A have won their last 4 league games, and that is Como, although the teams that they have beaten are all outside of the top 9. So I wouldn't be rushing to back the plus 130 for a Como win. I don't know if Steve is. What's your 2-unit play here, Steve?
That's a really good question. I'm trying to think of a 2-unit play I've had in Italy this season.
I don't think you have.
I've had one. No,
I don't think you have.
But do you know what? I have actually mixed it up a little bit here because I get a lot of DMs each week on X or emails, and thanks for those. And a regular watcher of the show, I'm not going to name the name. We were talking about my 2-unit play has been a bit inconsistent recently, and he's basically said, how about you put one of these unders on a 2-unit play? Reckons I've actually got a good eye for an under sometimes. So I'm going to go under 2.5 goals here, Parma against Como. Put my money where my mouth is. I've been banging on about Parma unders ever since Christian Kivu came to the club. Now, they did do me dirty, of course, on Monday. It was a 2-2 draw against Lazio.
Yeah, same.
Worst thing that could have happened, though. They scored an early goal, didn't they? Both halves. And even then, it nearly looked like the under was going to hang on. And then Lazio scored 2 late goals. And, it's interesting that the 2 recent overs they've had against Inter and Lazio, to put it bluntly, those 2 teams just have far better attacking weapons to face. And eventually, over 90 minutes, that's probably going to tell, isn't it? And, I think Pedro came off the bench, scored a couple of goals for Lazio. They showed their squad depth. But this is a much easier game for Parma. I think the odds are completely wrong here, by the way. How can Como be plus 130 here? Right, they are mid-table, right? I know they're doing really well. They're in good form. But they're mid-table. They've nothing really to play for in that respect. They're going to finish either, I think, 9th, 10th, 11th or 12th. And Parma are still fighting for their lives. They're in a much better position than they were a few weeks ago. But they're still, at the time of recording, 7 points clear of the drop. They're going to be fighting for everything. We know how they're going to play under Kivu. Nothing's going to change until they're officially safe. It's going to be whoever they're against. It's going to be a low-scoring game, I think. Not that many chances. They'll keep it tight. And, the under 2.5 record since Kivu's come in is really quite high, isn't it? 6 out of 9 games. Como haven't exactly been involved in that many high-scoring games recently themselves, keeping quite a lot of clean sheets. Fixtures are king. They've won their last 4. But, the likes of Genoa, they're on the beach. Torino have been struggling a bit. Monza, Lecce. I think this is a tougher game for Como. So I actually think Parma on a plus handicap plus a quarter of a goal would be a good bet as well. But under 2.5 goals here, minus 114. I've got to get involved in this one. I've done quite reasonably well out of the Parma unders, but I think it's now time to really nail down a 2-unit play on this selection, Dan. And also, it's going to be taking place, I think, 3 p.m. local time. We talk about, the weather improving can lead to more goals, but when it's going to be really hot, 28 degrees Celsius here, I don't think these 2 teams are going to fancy going, running end to end, are they? And the 0-0 detector could be in operation here, I just don't see why this match would open up at all. Parma are going to be, they don't have to win it. A draw's fine, really, for them. Under 2.5 goals. It's a clear bet for me. Strong selection here. One of my strongest selections of the season on value, actually. Minus 114.
Plus 950, 0-0, incidentally, if you're looking at that on the correct scores. Let's just stick with Italy, because we've got some thoughts, some leans from the boys as well. Well, first of all, James, it comes to the title race here, because look, credit to you as well, because whenever we've sort of dipped into sort of futures prices, you've always suggested that Napoli, when they've been, the sort of $3, $4, are worth just having a little bit of a nibble on. And that stretches right back to sort of August, September time here. And now they're minus 500 to win the title after what we saw last weekend. Inter, of course, beaten by Roma at home. They're plus 335. They're in the box seat now, and it is very much theirs to lose.
Yeah, very much is theirs to lose. And the reason I was so strong on Napoli was that when I looked at all the factors back in the start of the season and through the autumn, I just felt they had a real chance of hanging in there and being in the title race right until the very end. The main factor on that was arguably that they weren't in Europe. I've mentioned that many times, so they were going to be fresh. They've got a manager that knows what it is to win a league title in Antonio Conte, and they had a lot of players who have experience of competing for prizes. So I just felt there was a chance they were going to be underrated during the autumn and winter months, which they were when they were sort of plus 350, plus 400 prices like that. And now that they're top of the table, it's switched, and Inter are plus 335 now to win the title because they are 3 points behind with only 4 games to go. So if you had backed Napoli earlier on in the season, you've got a chance to lock in a profit now by backing Inter. Now that Inter finally have gone to an odds against price. So still a long way to go. I mean, it's only 4 games left for the two sides, but there could be twists and turns. I think if you look at the fixtures that the two teams have got remaining, on paper, you can argue maybe Napoli have got slightly easier fixtures purely based on the league positions of the teams they're facing. They're all in the bottom 8 are the 4 teams that Napoli are still facing. Inter might look at it and think, well, do you know what? We're probably going to be playing at least 2 teams and maybe 3 teams who won't have that much to play for. That's another way of looking at it. But you're right, Dan. It's Napoli's to lose now. And yeah, I just wanted to flag it up really because if you have been on Napoli, it's a great chance now to back Inter. One final thing I would say on the title race, I think the team news for Inter this weekend will be really interesting. Obviously, this game they've got this weekend, which is at home to Verona, falls between the 2 legs of that Champions League semi-final with Barcelona. They're competitive in the tie after that incredible 3-3 game this week. What will they do this weekend? Yeah, how fresh would they like to keep their players for that second leg at home against Barcelona next week? Versus how strong do we need to be to make sure we get the 3 points? Because we need the 3 points now to try to keep in touch with Napoli at the top of the table. So I think Inter's team news will be really interesting. That was partly why I didn't have any view on the matches themselves this weekend. But I think the title race, the odds are really interesting. I wouldn't be surprised if we have 1 and maybe 2 more twists in the final weeks of the season.
I backed Atalanta a long time ago for the title. That boat went a long way back, but I'm kicking myself not backing Napoli even. They were even money, I think, this time last week or 10 days or so ago, because I think the perception was that Inter were just going to win every game. They had the better goal difference. It wasn't going to matter, and it's such a turnaround. Their running is easier. And I'm pretty sure it's 37 games played at the moment, all competitions for Napoli versus, is it 53 games played by Inter? When we talked about fatigue and minutes into the legs of players, I mean, that tells you all you need to know, doesn't it, really? And obviously that huge game against Barcelona at the return next week. Yeah. Look, maybe there's a shot for Lecce to get something from that. Team news will be key. Steve, I don't know what your thoughts are on the title race. I know you've got a lean in the Napoli game for us as well.
Well, first, I'll salute James here because he's got it right, definitely. It's a funny one because Inter are, for me, definitely the better team. In fact, by quite a bit, I think they're better than Napoli. But you've mentioned that this is the reason why Napoli are going to win the title. It's because of the matches. It's just all caught up with Inter, Coppa Italia, Champions League run. I'm a little bit disappointed in Inter, to be honest, because I think that they should be used to this. They've dropped some weird points. They were 2-0 up on Parma and they blew that. It's a strange one. I'm pretty sure next season they'll bounce back and probably win the league. But it's done now for me. I mean, Napoli only need, how many points do we need? 3 wins and a draw will do it, won't it? Pretty sure that'll do the job. I mean, looking at the fixtures, it'd have to be a really big choke now on for them. I don't think I'd even hedge if I was on Napoli. But I have to say that was the greatest analysis from James early in the season that that this had no European football at all, and it really has made a big difference. And to be fair to Napoli, they've really been quite clutch of late in some matches where they needed some goals in the second half, especially.
What's your lean on Napoli game, Steve?
Well, I actually thought this would be James's 2-unit player of the week. I thought he'd be lumping on Napoli -1 on the Asian line here against Lecce. Look, now that they've been given this 3-point lead, I think they'll be like a dog with a bone now. I don't think they'll let go. If you're going to win the Serie A title, you've got to be beating Lecce at this stage of the season. I think Lecce are really poor. They're still somehow outside of the relegation zone. I mean, there's some really poor teams down there, in the bottom 5 or 6 of Italy, and this just shows the point. I mean, Lecce are just so woeful. I mean, their home form is one of the worst in the league at home. They've scored, I think, 12 home goals all season. Look, this is a very good chance of Napoli win to 0. I think the 0-1, 0-2 scores are very much in play. -1 Asian handicap. You're not going to lose any money whatsoever as long as they win the game. So I just think it'll be job done, business as usual. Even if it's 0-0 at half time, they'll find a way second half. Now that they've got this dangling carrot, more than a dangling carrot. They are not going to let go. They'll win this game.
Yeah, I may well have said Inter at Lecce. It's Napoli at Lecce, of course, Saturday midday. Inter, of course, take on Verona at home on Saturday, 2:45. Yeah, you might want to get with Verona. I don't know, Inter minus 375, as James mentioned there. Watch out for team news. You have got another Serie A Lean on Saturday, Steve. You can just rattle through that one for us. It's Cagliari at home to Udinese. Udinese have scuppered all of us at one stage or another this season, including myself on Monday. You siding with them or fading them?
Fading them. Yeah, I think you were on the right track on Monday. They've been in terrible form. Winless in 7 games, lost 5 in a row before that draw against Bologna, which kind of came out of nowhere, but it was still only a draw. They don't look like winning a game at the minute. They're down tools. They're mid-table. They're going to finish between 9th and 13th. They're done, really. You stick a fork in them for the season. Cagliari still need the points. They're not safe yet. I think minus a quarter of a goal, Cagliari. It's got to be a lean here. You've got to have some sort of draw insurance because they would take a draw, Cagliari. They'll be okay with a draw. But I think at this stage with the motivation, the poor Udinese form, I think a home win is quite likely. I'm not sure if Cagliari have ever been a lean on this show. It's been a long time, hasn't it? Often, usually opposed more than anything. I don't think I've ever given them as a bet or as a lean. So it's new territory, this.
No, I don't think so.
But Udinese have 2 suspensions as well, by the way, for this game.
Well, I mean, I hope they get stuffed. They just every now and then they've done us all at one stage or another. That's Italy done and dusted. We wish you well. If you have back Napoli, as James suggested, we must have mentioned. I think it's James. Every time we dropped on Italy, it's like, well, yeah, Napoli is still plus 300. If you want to bet them, I think it's a value play.
Yeah, pretty much. And one thing we should say, I was slightly predicating my preference for Napoli on Inter potentially going deep in the Champions League. Now, that's obviously happened. If they'd gone out in the last 16, I honestly think Inter would be winning the Serie A title. So there was always an element of what if about it. But I think that Inter had the potential to go deep in the Champions League. That's what's happened, and it's sort of now opened up for Napoli as we get towards the end of the season.
Let's talk Bundesliga with Steve, because we've got a hot dog 1 unit play and the lean as well from Mr. Wyss here. We're going to start with a hot dog, Steve, here. This is St. Pauli against Stuttgart, 9:30 on Saturday Eastern. Stuttgart are the favourites here. They're 23 points worse off than at the same stage from last season. Obviously, Guirassy left. They've got a cup final to look forward to, so it can still be a successful season. Probably will win the cup, won't they? St. Pauli, are they... They're probably safe, not completely safe. How are we seeing this one? I think this is a very, very clever hot dog from Mr. Wyss. Steve?
Do you ever watch a team and, at the end of the match or during the match, you actually ask yourself a question, who have this lot got next week? Because I really want to oppose them.
A lot.
Right,
yeah.
a lot. And that is exactly how I felt watching Stuttgart last week on Friday night. They lost against Heidenheim at home. 1-0. I lost money on the game. I often do when Heidenheim are involved, right? But I was really disappointed how Stuttgart played. I think it's a match that they just didn't give enough effort or intensity. And I've got a feeling, well, more than a feeling, I pretty much know that they are definitely eyeing up that DFB Pokal final. Arminia Bielefeld against Stuttgart. It's on the 24th of May. I know it's 3 weeks away, but I think players subconsciously know that their whole season rests on that match. They win it, they'll be in Europa League directly, I think. They are a Bundesliga 2-side, Arminia Bielefeld. A 3-side, not even a 2-side.
Side, aren't they?
Yeah, they've had an incredible run. Stuttgart should win that final, but I think their eyes are on that. No one wants to get injured, that sort of thing. It's kind of subconsciously, it's hard to give yourself the effort. The same might happen to sort of Crystal Palace in the run-up to the FA Cup final in the Premier League, I think. So the pick's got to be St. Pauli here in some form. Now, I've got to be honest, I'm not actually going to be taking this line when I do the hot dog. My bet is going to be St. Pauli straight on the money line. That's at plus 175. That's not a hot dog, though, is it?
No.
Unfortunately, I think that both shows have missed out on a lot of winners between plus 150 and plus 195 this season.
Yeah.
And this is definitely an example of it. But I don't want to let this one slide, so I've got to make it a hot dog.
But have you found a way here? Because I looked at this and thought, what's Steve doing here? Have you found a way where we could have copped a lot of those between 150 and 180 with this bet.
Taking the
the
minus
way that you're playing it on the Asian line.
Yeah, Asian handicap line minus 0.75 at plus 230. So if they win by 1 goal exactly, which I've got to admit was a very, very good chance of that, then but you're still winning half at plus 230. That is still a very good winner. And I think there's a good chance that they win this match to 0. If we talk about goals and expected goals, they've conceded the third fewest goals in the league, St. Pauli, this season. And in terms of the expected goals against numbers, it is the 6th best in the division. So it's pretty legitimate. They have overachieved a bit at the back, but they're pretty tight. I want to use a swear word here to describe what they're like to face. In other words, they're absolutely a horrible side to face. They're just defensive, rigid, don't give you anything. The numbers, the shots are so really down in their game. They're going to frustrate Stuttgart. Stuttgart don't want this at this stage of the season. They just want to enjoy themselves in a shootout. They're going to get dragged down into a real low-scoring battle. And I think I think 1-0, 2-0 St. Pauli here. I really do. I think they're a massive price. I would really want to oppose Stuttgart. For those who want to play it safe, they can go draw no bet. Or Stuttgart and tie and say under 3.5 goals. I don't know what that pays in the SGP. But I just don't see them losing. They're fighting for their life still. And this style, I mean, they beat Stuttgart 1-0 early in the season as well. This is the hot dog. I say minus 0.75 Asian handicap at plus 230. I had to be against Stuttgart this weekend.
Yeah, 2-goal win, you get your full cash. But obviously, as Steve has explained, just winning the game, you're making money because of the price. I think that's a very clever way to get one of those plus 150 to plus 190 teams on the money line over the line as a hot dog pick if you play on that Asian line. We're gaming the system a little bit, but, this is what betting is all about. 1 unit play, Steve. We stick in Germany. Dortmund against Wolfsburg here. Dortmund are very short. I mean, since Kovac has come in, they've been good. 4th best team since he came in, and from March the 1st, it would have been 2nd. So they are gunning for that Champions League spot. They're 4 points outside it at the moment. They've still got to play Leverkusen away and Kiel at home after this, but they will surely beat Wolfsburg. But again, how do we go about it for your 1 unit pick? Because you're not putting them up at minus 315.
Yeah, I mean, I was actually hoping that this could have been my hot dog pick, actually, Dan. But I'm going to take Dortmund on a minus 2 Asian handicap here at plus 150. I think we are going to get a blowout home victory. Right now, I think Dortmund are the 3rd best team in Germany. And they might even be playing as well as Leverkusen. The new manager change made a massive difference. Even the Champions League, just think that second leg against Barcelona, that really was surprisingly impressive, wasn't it? So give them some credit.
Think of the first leg when they missed chances.
Yeah, they're playing well. They're scoring a lot of goals. They are conceding a few goals, but I think this is a match where they can win quite well. Wolfsburg, they've mailed it in, haven't they, for the season? If you look at their form, it's horrendous. What is it? 2 wins since nearly the start of the year, near the start of 2025, or certainly since mid-January. Lost 5 out of 6. I opposed them last week, and we're going to go against them again here. They're mid-table, nothing at stake. You can just sense some teams want the season to end, and they're desperate for the final, 34th and final game. They've got a suspension for this match as well. Maximilian Arnold is ruled out. They've got a bad record in this fixture as well. They've lost on the last, I think it's like 5 visits to this one. They lost 6-0 in 2022-23 as well. So I'm not saying it's going to be 6-0 again, but I think Dortmund, they've got such a strong goal-scoring threat, haven't they, Dortmund? They are very capable of scoring 4 or 5 goals here, in which case they should be covering a minus 2 Asian handicap line. If it was mid-season, I'd probably go the over goals instead, because I think Wolfsburg would be more keen to get involved and give more of a fight. But I think they could roll over here. And we know that this manager has a history. When he was at Southampton, Ralph Hasenhüttl, there were some big defeats, wasn't there, when things didn't go well. So I think the minus 2 Asian line is worth taking. I mean, you could just go minus 1.5 or minus 1.75, but I want the plus 150 here. Bit of value. I nearly thought about hot dog here, but I couldn't do it because I knew you'd yellow card me on the 3-way handicap. Dortmund minus 2 on the 3-way handicap. That's effectively minus 2.5 on the Asian line. It was plus 220, I think. But I'd much rather have the full push for a 2-goal win. So Dortmund win big for me this weekend.
Yeah, I can't have that 3-way handicap. I just think it's just,
silly.
It's amateur status if you play in the three-way handicap. If you play it and make it win, at me. Don't mind. I'll have that discussion with you. Very quickly on a Bundesliga lean, Steve, to wrap things up. Gladbach, Hoffenheim.
Do I have a lean here? I've completely forgotten about this lean.
Apparently so.
I have completely forgotten about this lean. It's over 3.5 goals. And to put it simply,
correct.
I don't want to be, I don't want to bang on here. Just look at the recent results of both teams, and that's all you have to look at. The style as well. It's bang open. What was it? 4-3 last week, the Kiel game. I called that one right. I'd happily have an official unit on. I mean, it was really, I had to decide between this and the Dortmund game for the unit. Actually, I mean, I could have had 10 picks on this show this weekend, but there's got to be goals in this. Just take the straight over 3.5 goals at plus money.
Lean from Spain from James. Valladolid against Barcelona. Barca off the back of that crazy 3-3 with Inter. What are your thoughts here? Just a lean from James?
Yeah, just the lean. And I'm going under goals because the goal line is set so high, as you would expect on Barcelona games, because they have been high scoring in La Liga this season, as have Valladolid's games. So the goal line that I'm going under is 4.25 goals, which is minus 132. The goal line at around evens is 4 goals. So you can go under 4.25 goals at minus 132. Yeah, the stats are on your side with this, even though Barcelona can obviously run up big score lines. 71% of all games involving these two sides this season in La Liga would have paid out with under 4.25 goals. So I'm happy to do it on that basis. And really, why this weekend would I go unders on Barcelona? Well, I think it's a very interesting game this weekend for them, as we mentioned with Inter in Serie A, in that it's a league game falling between two huge legs of that Champions League semi-final. But Barcelona can't write off the league game, even though in their case they're ahead in their title race, because it's still fairly close. They're 4 points ahead of Real Madrid. Yeah, so they can lose and still be ahead, but they won't want to do that. However, I think their manager will be tempted to rotate here a little bit. They're playing one of the weaker sides of the division. I just think he'll be tempted to put one, maybe even two of his attacking players on the bench, or if not, take them off if they were to start once it feels like the game is won. Whichever way that goes with the team news, I think we're less likely here to see one of the big scoring Barcelona wins that we've seen this season. So I think it's a good time to be unders. You're only going to lose on this game if there are 5 or more goals. I'm not quite sure about that when they've got Inter Milan on their mind. So just a lean for me, but under 4.25 goals is the way I would play this game.
Yeah, just looking at the results, 5 times they've gone over 5 or over. But I mean, the odds are still very much in their favour. It's a massive goal line, Steve. Isn't
over 5.5 goals.
Giggle.
Listen, over 5.5 goals is plus 300. 5.5. I mean, I must say, Valladolid are that bad. I mean, I said this to Nigel yesterday on the live show that because we win 11, might give them a game. But I did look at this goal line. I thought, what the absolute, I quite like this play.
Unofficial lean SGP next from Steve on Saint Etienne Monaco. What you got for us?
A little bit disappointed that the odds are not more generous on the goal line for this game. I'll tell you what, if it was 3.25, I'd be smashing into these overs all day long. But we've got a 3.75 goal line in the books. I think I've finally cotton on to Saint Etienne. It's taken them long enough, hasn't it? It's took them about 4 or 5 months to realise what this team's about. But do you remember that? I mean, that SGP that I won, I don't want to keep banging on about it. I've not had many this year, but in the Saint Etienne game,
this is getting to
Brest,
Nigel Aston Villa status.
I know it is. I know. But this match reminds me of that. I think this could be over everything: goals, cards, corners, the lot, shots. Monaco have just played against Strasbourg and Le Havre, and they've been really frustrated. Like, they've been facing 2 defensive sides. They're going to really enjoy facing this Saint Etienne team, which is far more open, more threatening, but they'll give them way more chances. So an unofficial SGP. I've looked into the player shots again, but I'm going to start with over 2.5 goals. It really should go. I think this could go over 4.5. This could go over 5.5. I wouldn't bet under 4.25 here. And then a shot on target for all of these players. Lucas Stassin, we've mentioned him so many times this season. He's reliable. I'm going to go for David Tashvili for a shot on target as well this time for Saint Etienne. He's on the free kicks, possibly penalties. He gets involved. And then Mika Biereth for Monaco. been absolutely brilliant since he's come into the club. And the final guy is, I'm going to be going with Magnus Akliuch for Monaco. He's actually minus 109 for a shot on target on his own, which I think is a great price. I think he should be starting right wing here. And if look, any attacker against St Etienne should be getting a shot on target. It's just the way they play. So plus 750 for this, by the way, Dan. Plus 750.
Okay,
so
just rattle through that
goals.
again. It's a lean. Go on.
Over 2.5 goals.
Over.
Stasin, Davitashvili, Bireth, and Akliuch. Just over 0.5 shots on target. Just need one from them. Plus 750. And like I say, if people want to get involved in this game, I think it could go mental over everything. Unfortunately, I do think Monaco will win it. We want Santé to win, don't we? We want them to stay in the league. I think Monaco will win this something like 4-2.
That's the unofficial Lean SGP from Steve, featuring Saint Etienne. Let's get to Sunday's games, and we've got James' 2-unit play and hot dog off the bat, and indeed the 1-unit play from James coming up here. Lyon Lens, first of all, James, we can talk about, because this is your 2-unit play here, 11:15 on Sunday. Obviously, for Lyon, it's about a place in the top 4, top 3. There is a difference, isn't there? A minor difference in some ways, but a significant one in other. Lyon minus 180 to beat Lens. Talk us through this play, and why is it different between 3rd and 4th in Ligue?
Yeah, well, the play is Lyon here on the Asian handicap with a minus 0.75 goal start. It's available at minus 122. So with that pick, as long as Lyon win the game, then you're going to make a profit. If they win by a single goal, you'll make a small profit. If they win by 2 or more goals, then you'll make a bigger profit. We've mentioned motivation at this time of the season on the show in the last few weeks. This pick is largely about motivation because you have a Lyon side who are going for a top 4 spot. We have an historically tight race here for a top 4 spot in League One. There are 6 teams at the moment with a legitimate chance of finishing. I think they could finish top 2, top 3, or top 4 behind champions PSG. What's the difference between top 4 and top 3? Well, if you finish in the top 3 in France, you go straight into the Champions League group stage next season. If you finish 4th, you're in the Champions League, but you've got to go through the qualifying rounds. And that has been a difficult thing for French teams to do in recent seasons. A lot of them have gone out in those qualifiers. So everybody who is in this race for a Champions League place is trying to get into the top 3. So they go straight into the group stage. And Lyon are one of those teams. Lens, who they're facing this weekend, are definitely going to finish in mid-table. They have got absolutely nothing to play for. They lost last weekend at home to Auxerre 4-0, which was an astonishing result, actually, because if you looked at the league table last weekend, Lens did still have an outside chance of challenging for Europe, but they played as though they didn't believe they could do it. Now they can't do it. So we know this weekend this is a game between a home side in Lyon who've got everything to play for and an away side in Lens who've got nothing to play for. So motivation's the main factor on the game. The second factor is just the difference in quality between the two sides. Now, if you look at the league table, there's only 9 points between the teams. You might think, well, Lyon are the stronger of the two, but it's not that big of a difference. I think that is not telling you the full story because Lens really were a much stronger side in the first half of the season. They sold 3 or 4 really important players in the January transfer window. Since that window closed, Lens have lost 7 out of 11 League One matches. Same time frame, Lyon have won 9 out of 12. So I think actually second half of the season, the difference in quality between these two sides is bigger than what the league table would tell you if you just look at the league table. So I think 2 major factors here are both in your favour if you're back in Lyon. The first is the motivation. The second is the quality of the two sides. I think Lyon minus 180 on the money line will be too short for many people. So I would back them on the Asian handicap, minus 0.75, and it's available at minus 122.
Let's get your hot dog as well. This is Lille against Marseille, 2:45 on Sunday. Lille plus 135, Marseille plus 195 here. It's third versus second. Lille can go second with a win. Get Steve's thoughts on sort of top 3, top 4 after we've got James's hot dog as we go to the shots on target market again for this one, James.
Yeah, and the player I'm picking in the shot on target market is a Marseille player. It's Amin Gouiri, who will be playing centre forward for Marseille if he starts, which he almost certainly will if he's fit. Amin Gouiri to have over 1.5 shots on target in this game is my hot dog play. It's available at plus 285. Why Guiri and why this weekend? Well, a little bit of background on Amin Guiri. He came into Marseille in the January transfer window. He's been knocking around in the French league for quite a few seasons now at Nice and Rennes. He has often played as a left winger at previous clubs. What's interesting about Marseille since he came in there in January is they played him as a centre forward, sort of play a 3-4-2-1 system at Marseille. He's only played as a centre forward since he came in, and I think we're reaping the benefits of that in terms of seeing him getting into a lot more scoring positions than we have in the past. So he's got plenty of goals since he came in. I think he's got 8 goals in his last 8 games. He got a hat-trick last weekend. And if you look at shots on target, he's managed 3 or more shots on target in 4 of his last 8 matches. So this is a player who's not just scoring goals, he's having plenty of shots on target. I think the price of plus 285 on Guiri here to have over 1.5 shots on target is really good value because he is the main man. He's in great form. It's a massive game for Marseille, massive game for both sides because they're sort of facing off here as rivals for a top 4 spot. One other final factor which might help Guiri is that one of Lille's 2 centre-backs is suspended this weekend. Bafodé Diakite is the player in question. Lille have got very settled centre-back partnerships. So I think it's a real loss there, and it might cause a little bit of confusion in defence for Lille this weekend. So great chance for Guiri here to keep up the form he's been showing. I think you'll get a good run for your money here. So it's a hot dog play from me. It's Amin Guiri over 1.5 shots on target at plus 285.
James, what's your 1, 2, 3, 4 when it comes to the final positions in Ligue 1? Well, obviously we know Paris Saint-Germain are first. Yeah. What's your 2, 3, 4?
Yeah, great shout. So Marseille, I would say second.
Yeah.
Third, I think Lyon. And fourth, I'm going to say Nice. Yeah.
Lyon plus 150 top 4. Nice plus 185 top 4. Steve, who's your top 4?
I am really worried. As you know, I'm on Marseille to win the league without PSG, and I tell you what, if
they're minus 182 top 2, which is
I
effectively
think Lille will beat them this weekend. I've really got a horrible feeling about that. I mean, I hope you know this might be my natural pessimism that comes out here. But I tell you what, if Marseille take the lead, I'm going to hedge. I'll back Lille in play because I think both Lille and Marseille will win their last 2 games. And there's a massive Monaco play Lyon, don't they? Next week.
Yeah.
So the result of that's going to be, I don't really know, but I think at this point in time I'm going to say PSG, Lille, Marseille, and a 4th place team. Go with I don't know, Nice as well, maybe.
Nice top 4 plus 185, gentlemen. They sort of agree. Yeah. I've press ganged them into that. But if you look at the bet rivers, you've got top 3 and top 4 betting. Let's get to Spain and Real Madrid against Celta Vigo. Here, Real Madrid minus 295, Celta Vigo plus 650. You've got James's 1 unit play here. By the time this game comes around, Real Madrid probably going to be 7 points down to Barcelona off the back of that fractious Copa del Rey final defeat, which, James, you did get a correct. You did say Real Madrid or draw, didn't you? Double chance. So hats off to you. I thought that Barcelona would win it. I got that wrong. You were right. Really good suspended, but he's out injured. I think he's took the opportunity to get a bit of surgery on it. I don't know if it's a knee or a thigh. I can't remember. But anyway, Vasquez out. Bellingham can play, even though there's lots of red cards towards the end of that game. What's your 1 unit pick here?
My 1 unit pick is on Real Madrid on the Asian handicap this weekend. They're obviously really short price to win the game on the money line. They're minus 295. So I'm backing them minus 1.5 on the Asian handicap at minus 117. Listen, there are reasons why people might oppose this view. You've mentioned some of the injuries they've got. And they're playing a Celta Vigo side who've done pretty well this season, not just in general, but they've actually done pretty well against some of the top sides. I think they drew at home to Barcelona. I think they drew away to Atletico Madrid. So they're no pushovers and they'll make a game of this. But I'm going with Real Madrid here, like I did last weekend in the Cup final. It's a lot of my picks can be stats based and there's a lot of evidence behind them. This is more to do with the mentality of Real Madrid, really. I think if you're them and you're going into this league game this weekend, after what happened in the Copa del Rey final last weekend, which will be devastating for them to have lost it. We can argue whether they deserved to win it or didn't deserve to win it, but it's gone now, just as the Champions League has gone. It is now all about the league for them. And we've seen so many times in recent seasons that no matter how well they're playing or badly they're playing or who's out or who's fit, they tend to stay in a title race. They tend to stay in a Champions League if they're going for that right up until the very end. So I think, however they do it, they'll get the win here. And when they've won at home this season, they've generally won by a couple of goals. They've got 13 home wins in La Liga this season. 9 of those 13 home wins have been by 2 or more goals. They've not even played that well, I don't think, in some of those games where they've won by a couple of goals, but they've managed to do it. So I'm backing them to do that this weekend on the Asian handicap. Minus 1.5 is my line. You need them to win by 2 goals for that to pay off. I just feel that they'll want to get the win here, obviously to stay in the title race, but they know they can't afford to go into that massive game next weekend against Barcelona without a win here, because if they weren't to win this weekend, it's not going to be all over, but it might feel that way if Barcelona were to get the 3 points. So huge game, and like I said, I think they've got the pedigree, they've got the experience just to make sure they get a win, and in fairly convincing fashion is how they've generally won games at home this season. So it's my 1 unit play. It's Real Madrid minus 1.5 on the Asian handicap.
5-1 to win La Liga, incidentally. Obviously, if they win today and then beat Barcelona, they'll be with a point, presuming Barcelona this weekend. Steve, you've got a lean for us in this one as well.
This was nearly my hot dog. Over 4.5 goals, plus 220. I think this match is ripe for goals. The two teams met in the Copa del Rey in January. 5-2 win for Real Madrid that day. 2-1 win earlier in the season. Celta Vigo just lost 4-3 away to Barcelona. They have scored a lot of goals this season. They've scored at least 1 goal in 14 of their last 15 games. 7 of those matches they've scored at least twice. So, I definitely think Celta Vigo get on the score sheet here. They might get multiple goals. They'll. The reason I didn't quite pull the trigger on this as a hot dog, it's the team news. There's always, I don't know about you, but the team news with Real Madrid, every single week there's some doubts, isn't there? It's felt like all season, and I think it's Vinicius and Mbappe this week. They'll probably play. So that's why I opted with the other hot dog that I went with St. Pauli. But I'm pretty strong on the goals here. That 5-2 score back in January, that could be repeated. It wouldn't 4-2 or 5-2 wouldn't shock me here. I think there'll be a lot of Real Madrid will get a lot of chances. They'll enjoy this actually. They're not going to be facing a team that's going to come and park the bus.
That is Real Madrid against Celta Vigo. Just a lean from Steve over 4.5, and another lean featuring Real Sociedad and Athletic Club. Steve, you are siding against the team that's in Europa League action.
I nearly said I'm going to side with the Basque team here, but it's actually the Basque derby, isn't it? What a horrible match timing-wise for Athletic Bilbao. This game comes. I think they're effectively going to have to sack off a Basque derby here to give themselves the best chance of making the Europa League. Well, yeah, but it's right in the middle. It's a sandwich game in the middle of the Man United fixture. And I think they're going to have to accept that they might not be able to give it their all if they want to focus on the Europa League. But more importantly, the last 7 Basque derbies between these two sides have ended in a home win. It's a really strong home field advantage. Athletic Club have only won one of their last, 10 visits here to the, I think it's called the Real Stadium now, isn't it? The Anoeta, effectively. And, for Real Sociedad, this is their whole season now, really depends on this game. Way more important for them. We could end up with, I think, 9 teams from La Liga could qualify for Europe, that is if Athletic Club win the Europa League. We guarantee 8 teams are definitely in it. Real Sociedad have been kind of on the beach a bit of late, but they could still qualify for Europe. But I think the bigger motivation for them isn't qualifying for Europe here. It's beating their big rivals, Athletic Club Bilbao at home. I'm going to go straight on the money line here. I think it's plus 135 now is this price on Real Sociedad. I think they're going to bring it here against the Bilbao side who no, it's got to be a distraction. I'm sorry. Europa League semi-final against Man United. It's a distraction in terms of physical, mental, everything. Bad record here. I think everything points to Real Sociedad getting the victory.
Yeah, I like that one. Athletic Club, after Europa League games, only won 2 of 12 this season. Let's get official same-game parlay pick. James is on duty this week. We go to Italy for Roma against Fiorentina on Sunday midday. Only Napoli have won more points than Roma since Claudio Ranieri rocked up in mid-November. They're still in with a bit of a squeak of maybe getting Champions League football. They've been brilliant. Does a Roma win form part of your same game parlay? How are we putting it together for the official SGP this week, James?
Yeah, it does sort of. I'm going Roma or tie as the first of two legs in the SGP here. I mean, listen, are Roma going to lose? They don't seem like they're ever going to lose. It's the most incredible unbeaten run they're on, and they're top of the 10-game form table and the top of the 15-game form table in Serie A at the moment because they just seem to win or draw no matter who they play. You know, they've done it against the weaker teams, but they've also done it against the better teams. So my first leg is Roma or tie, which is obviously really short odds as you'd expect given that they're at home here. But I think it's a fairly safe one, given what we've seen, and also because Fiorentina probably going to be a little bit tired or distracted or both because they've got their own European semi-final. As we're recording today, they're playing Real Betis in the Conference League. So Roma will tie the first leg. The second leg is over 2.5 goals, which I'm going to throw in there. That's longer odds. I think if you look at the top line stats on Roma, they've actually had not that many over 2.5 goals. However, they've for me played slightly differently at home and away. They've had 9 out of 17 home games go over, so they tend to be a little more open to their games when they play at home. For Fiorentina away, it's 9 out of 16 have gone over 2.5. So you've got over 50% of their relevant home and away games as overs. If you put over 2.5 goals into an SGP with Roma or tie, just the two legs, it's going to pay out at plus 112.
Nice one. That's the SGP. And we've got a lean as well from James on the Sunday Serie action. And I might press gang into Steve's top four for Serie A while we're talking about it as well. James, your lean is in a key game, massive game in the battle for Champions League qualification. It is between Bologna and Juventus. Juventus fourth, Bologna fifth. Didn't take their chances. We knew last Monday, unfortunately, for us who bet them. What do you like in the big game featuring Bologna-Juve?
Bologna-Juve for me, it's just the lean. I'm going to go straight on the money line on the tie, which is plus 205. I think it's a fascinating matchup, this. You've got so many different factors involved, slightly different styles of play. Juventus have changed a little bit as well since Igor Tudor came in as manager. But the longer I looked at this game, the more I think the tie is the way to play it. There's obviously very little to pick between them in the league table. If you look at Bologna's games this season against sides who are above them at the moment in the table, and Juventus are one of those, 4 out of the 7 they've played have ended in draws. That includes the reverse fixture against Juventus, which was a 2-2 draw earlier in the season. So I think it's very close. It wouldn't surprise me at all if it ends level. And I think the tie at plus 205 is pretty good value given how well matched these two teams are.
And it might just suit Juventus, I think, here, James, because they were pushed to 63 points. And whatever Roma or Lazio did, unless they won really well, Juve would stay in fourth place with 3 games to go. Do you think Juve will... I think there's only one place up for grabs. Atalanta are 3 points ahead of Juve at the moment. Do you think Juve will grab that last Champions League spot? I mean, the market's suggesting that will be the case. The minus 112, Bologna plus 225.
Yeah, I do. They would be my pick. I think they should manage to get it. And I think you're right about the way they'll approach this game. I think Igor Tudor, their manager, will probably tell them to go out there and throw everything at it and try and win it. But I think he'll also know, since he came in, that they've not been that prolific in front of goal. We've mentioned they're not necessarily struggling to create chances, but they may be struggling a little bit to create top-class chances and then convert them. So I think taking that into account, a draw here, listen, away from home against a really good Bologna side, would be a pretty good result, right? And I think should be another step towards, for me, just about hanging on and claiming a top 4 spot.
Yeah, they've still got Lazio away, then Udinese at home, Venezia away, Bologna have got Milan away, Fiorentina away, Genoa at home, not going to be easy. Roma, Steve, I did look before, what are they? Plus 450 for a top 4. Who do you think might nick 4th spot in Italy?
Yeah, I've just done my maths while I was waiting for you. I've predicted my outcomes for all the remaining games. I've got Atalanta 75 points, Lazio and Roma on 68, Juventus on 70, and Bologna 67. I've got a lot of predicted draws in these remaining games, by the way. So it's going to.
So what does that work out? Juve 4th?
Yeah,
Juve 4th.
Juve 4th. Then I've gone. Yeah, 70 points. I mean.
Yeah. Atalanta 3rd, Juve 4th,
Yeah.
I mean, I thought they were going to drop out for a long, long time this season, but minus 112 might not be the worst as long as they get something from this, and I think they will. Final lean from James on Monday. It's Genoa against Milan. What you got for us here?
Yeah, well, Steve mentioned at the top of the show doing his 2-unit play on under 2.5 goals that, he had correspondence with someone who said Steve was pretty good at spotting under 2.5 goals trends. So shout out to Steve, because this is really inspired by his view on Genoa, the game being Genoa and Milan. When Patrick Vieira took over early in the season, Steve called it and said that teams tend to tighten up and be more difficult to beat whenever Patrick Vieira takes them over. And we've seen that with Genoa, not just in the results they've had, but in the number of under goals games that they've had. So it's just a lean for me, but it's under 2.5 goals on this Genoa-Milan game. Genoa's games have been going unders before Vieira took over, as well as since he came in, actually, but they have gone up of the number of games which have had under 2.5 goals since Vieira came in. I think it's 73% of all Genoa's games since Vieira was appointed, including 70% at home. So it's just a lean on unders for me. That's all about Genoa, not about Milan. Milan's games have been higher scoring, but Genoa do have a habit of sucking teams in and making them play the way that Genoa want to play. So I think under 2.5 goals, minus 117 is a pretty good price given what we've been seeing from Genoa this season.
Yeah, Milan got that Coppa Italia final to look forward to, of course. And if you've been watching Genoa this season, you'll have witnessed, on average, 2.06 goals per game, which is the fewest in Serie A. We like unders in this one. Just a lean from James at minus 117. That's the Monday night game at 2:45. Eastern, Genoa against Milan. Steve, James, thanks for your company. Good luck to one and all. We'll keep everyone up to date via our Twitter feeds. Subscribe to the YouTube channel. Get your comments in as per usual. Some good comments and some good picks across the continent last weekend. Keep them coming in. Don't forget, live show from a soccer standpoint, 11 a.m. every midweek day, Monday through until Friday. The tennis live for you. And we've got baseball and basketball content coming your way as well. You're well catered for here on the Betting Weekly Studios channel. Follow us at Because We Win on Twitter and on Instagram. From all of us for now, though, it is goodbye. Have a very good betting weekend.